Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around and welcome to the Q&A with filmmakers. Laura Magnusson, director of Blue, and Joaoquin Cocina and Cristobal Leon, the creators of The Wolf House. So, wow, I know everyone. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
And before we get started, I just want to tell the viewers out there, if you have any questions for the filmmakers, please use the live chat to send your questions, which can be found to the right of this video. Or below the video, and we will definitely get to as many of your questions as we can. And so, oh, they're already floating in, but I just want to start off by thanking Joaquin, Laura, and Cristobal for being here tonight or this morning. I'm just going to start off with a few questions, and then we'll get to the audience questions.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, like both Blue and The Wolf House deal with very, very heavy subject matter and trauma, right? And I feel like the aesthetic choices you made in your films allows the audience to bear witness the pain of others, like whether it's like this individual pain or this collective trauma in a very unique way. And it was nice talking to you beforehand because, you know, to find out that you're all visual artists, you know, and you approached filmmaking in a very different way as well. I just want to start off with a question for Laura. So your short Blue, you know, and I read that it is a visual testimony of your experience with sexual violence. Can you talk about how your film took shape and the significance of the location and the site of the seafloor? And you know, I also found out too that this is the first performance you've ever been in on any kind of moving image work.
Yes. Yeah, my work, I was thinking about my own limitations with giving testimony to my experiences of trauma, I guess through the police or through court, and basically through word-based testimony, and how the judicial system was asking for more I guess, factual evidence, and I felt to the exclusion of my felt embodied experience. So I situated the work on the seafloor because I felt like it gave me a forum and a setting to think about my embodied experiences of trauma and to be able to tell a story through my body of my movement. And the setting of the seafloor being a place that could maybe dramatize or emphasize some of the psychological dimensions of my experience and alienation and whatnot, but the ocean also being a place that's restorative too. So rather than telling a story of trauma that is only looking at the darker aspects of it, I felt that the being on the seafloor and kind of taking care of my body at the bottom of the ocean and maybe showcasing some resilience and some of the healing properties of the water also fit into that narrative.
Yeah, because there's it feels very precarious down there, you know, like I feel like at any moment something could go wrong and, you know, there's so much weight there. And yeah, it's just a very beautiful work. And I want to, you know, now ask Cristobal and Joaquin about the Wolf House, and maybe before I get into like any kind of formal questions about the animation, like the how did that feel? How your animation points to like historical and collective trauma.
Yeah.
And you know, so and if for the viewers don't know anything about Colonia Dignidad and Paul Schaefer, and maybe like the history of maybe Nazism in Chile. Can you talk about how your film came about and just kind of like this brilliant kind of premise of, you know, using like this kind of propaganda or fairy tale model that your production company, you know, restored, you know, as the premise to tell this story?
Yeah, it's a very complicated, not because it's complex. It's not a complex process, but because it's very like it happened really organically, and we don't know actually, because we tell this very often, and I think we fake the story every time we tell how we made the film actually, but it's a very like kind of a chaotic process in which we started writing the film. We had the idea of playing a role-playing game, of like making a film dressing the skin of someone else. And we had this idea of making a film made by a cult, by a sect.
Right.
And by researching and by like, we realized that we were talking, when we were talking about a sect in abstract, we were talking actually about Colonia Dignidad, that it's a very like very present episode in our recent history. Colonia Dignidad, just to make a very short story, is a cult founded by German settlers in the south of Chile that committed every possible like felony, like in the Chilean constitution and law. You know, like children abuse. Like the leader, Paul Schaeffer, was a pedophile who abused of almost like every boy of the community, and like tax evasion, to name just the nicest thing that they did. They also collaborated a lot with the Pinochet dictatorship, that is the context in which we grew up, and they tortured people there, they killed people there. They fabricated weapons, they fabricated extermination gases. So it's a really like horrible story, and very maybe the darkest episode in the history of our country.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe Joaquin, you want to continue?
Well, basically, when we decided that the film, well, all this was happening while we were working, like animating, but when we decided that we will we will not take Colonia Dignidad as a distant reference, but it will be in the root of the film. That makes everything a little bit like, it changed a lot the film, of course, in the last, the last period. It was like 2.5 years or something like that of the production, that like half of it. It opened up us like many things that will be like, it confronted us with something that we were doing before, but in this case was more clear, that this thing that we choose to confront, or you choose to like go into a problematic subject, but in a way that is not that regular. Like normally when you go into a museum or the film theater and you go to see a piece that is about an horrible place, basically the film or the piece it's against them. So you and my kid.
Hi.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. So basically, we choose to not do something against the colony, but we imagined that we were the colony. So that opened up us. I have to check my son a little bit.
That's fine.
I will
That's
come
fine.
back.
Yeah.
It's like 30 seconds. He will go to try to sleep. It's a little bit confusing for him. You know, here's 1 a.m. and daddy is talking. Wait.
That's okay. Yeah, because go ahead, Cristobal.
Yeah, I don't know. I a bit lost the track, but so yeah, at one point we heard about something that really like stimulated our imagination. It was that in the that this sect was like a kind of it was at the time of the dictatorship. It was a really like locked place. You know, no one could go out freely or go in freely. Not even the Chilean police go in this place. They were really politically powerful, you know.
Yeah.
And at one point, the police entered when democracy came back to Chile, and the leader of the sect went to jail, and the sect changed it, but it never dissolved. They are still there, and now it's
Okay.
turned into a kind of a hotel and resort, and a very strange thing. It's like Auschwitz turned into a hotel and resort restaurant.
Bed and breakfast.
Yeah, really, really strange. And this community, they have like a very big film archive, and we heard about this. We didn't know this,
Okay.
but nobody could access this film archive. No, we couldn't. We wanted to do it, but we couldn't. And so we thought, what would happen if in this archive someone would find not like a documentary film, that is the things that, or like they would make films like to give to the Chilean TV stations, like in order to fake the inner life of the community, you know, like to present like a happy
Right.
life images,
Like propaganda.
propaganda. Yeah.
Propaganda.
So, but what would happen if they would have made like a Walt Disney film, like I don't know, the Snow White, but made by Paul Schaefer, and the Wolf House is that film, is the film that we made. And you know,
Right.
I think like art has many like roles, like it has like psychological roles and entertaining roles, and but I think like the main one of the roles when it comes to society and when it comes to community is like to ask and to transform the identity of the community. And so I think to interpretate and to digest and to talk about traumas is really important, as it is like in a therapy, you know, like, so that
Totally.
I think
Yeah.
that's the reason, I think, because we are like always coming back to these subjects, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's in the memory. And okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna get to some questions now from the audience. So Laura, for Blue, how was it shot underwater? And if so, and you're in the film underwater, did the physical process of being underwater, enactment of wading through trauma, assist in the healing process?
Yeah, so I worked with a underwater filmmaker, Guy Chomet of Liquid Motion Film, and then I had my friends from a dive company, Pelagic Ventures Scuba, also support the process. And so it takes place 70 feet underwater off the coast of Cozumel, Mexico. And I don't wear goggles in the film, so I can't really see underwater. So a lot of the preparation and the, I guess, process and the sort of visual shots that I was hoping to get were discussed on land or on the boat. And then we had a system in place to kind of get me down to the seafloor, and I would take off my scuba gear and I'd be weighted. And there was a transition that happened to get me, I guess, ready for the shooting process. But a lot of the shots weren't predetermined because I felt like I wanted the space to give my testimony underwater, not predetermine what it would be on land and then enact it or perform it. So I wanted there to be space for me to discover what it is that I wanted to convey through my body. And there was a degree of catharsis that happened through that process. I wouldn't say that that was the point of making the film, but it was certainly I think a lot of people who experience trauma can feel disconnected from their body. And for me, when you go dive, I learned how to dive a couple of years ago after the trauma that happened to me. And it's a remarkable feeling to be underwater and to take care of your body, and you really have to be present with your body in that capacity. And yeah, so I would say there was a degree of catharsis.
Yeah, and and relating, back to the Wolf House, like the performativity of the stop motion that is in the film. And I learned online that you, like the process of like the production, that you actually had exhibitions. You like moved your studio around in different exhibitions in different cities so that people could see, you know, the hand of the animator and see the process of the labor involved. And I wonder if you could talk more about that and materials and scale. There's questions about like scale and because there is like, well, although we don't see you in there, there's definitely, of course, obviously like that act of the performance of animation in there.
Well, yeah, there are many like questions in that question, but the thing about the scale is basically, the film is made in like real scale. So every furniture that you see in the film is mainly a real furniture. And what you are talking about, the presence of our bodies in the stage or the places, it was super important for us in this film. And we were working in this kind of like real scales animations before in some short films, and in a way the Wolf House for us is the last chapter of that. I mean, we said, okay, we will do the sharpest version of that kind of approach with the Wolf House. So for us was I personally think that one of the most fascinating things about stop motion is that what you see is exactly what is not there. So you see the energy of someone moving things and all that energy, like in this case, our bodies, you know, going into like moving things, going out, take the picture, and doing that for like 12 times to make a second or 10 times to make a second. And you can see the, you know, like that in every stop motion movie, even if you hide that at most as possible, you will have a little bit like of movement in a puppet, and you will see, okay, there is a finger there. So we try to make that as far as possible part of the movie. So even when you see the floor, you know, you see our steps in a way, and we were trying to add that, or include that in every part of the movie. Like as more, we were really clear about that. There's not like post-production in the film. I mean, there's image post-production, but not like After Effects. So if there was a wire, like, you know, like the wire is there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same spirit of like showing the bones or showing the like everything that is going on kind of like move us or like took us to the art spaces. We are both like visual artists, so museums and galleries and art space are not like strange places for us. So it was not a big step. It was just like basically melting to things. But when we were like starting to work in the studio, which was basically a house or like a room, we were like wondering if maybe the studio was more interesting than the film. So like honestly, we're like, this place is amazing. We have this like strange capacity to destroy places like super fast. Like you give us your home and in 1 week it's like a complete mess. So we thought, okay, we like the artworks that show their bones and the process. We love our studio. We will be locked down for so much time, and we will have to be like far from the art world, or we can combine that and transform the Wolf House in not only it will be not only like a film, but also a process. I don't know, Chris, if you want to.
No, I think that's enough.
Yeah, too much.
No, that's great. No, and what a nice thing to do, share that process with people. So I have another question. So it's from David Knight, who's a senior programmer at the Gimli Film Festival. Cristobal and Joaquin, was it difficult to remain committed to your original concept of the film over the very long production period? Did you find yourself adapting or revisiting your original intentions?
It's a good question. I think, well, the question actually is if we had like an original intention.
Yes, and like, did it change?
No. I mean, like the question is actually if we have it. I think we
Oh.
didn't. You know, like we changed the. We have like to explain a bit how we worked in this film. We had like three like tools of a script, or of like three maps for doing this film. We have like a kind of a storyboard, like a visual story, you know, like it was basically like 30 images. That was like the guide for the animation. But we knew that we would change that the whole time, because we are really impatient, and we started making the animation when we weren't really sure about the story that we'd have. So we kept changing the story until the last scene, until during the 5 years that we kept working on the film, we changed it all the time. So we had like another story to tell, that is the story of the materials, you know, and we wanted this film to be like a one current, one flow of energy and material from the start to the end, you know, and we had like another script for that. We wrote a decalogue, like that, our 10 commandments for animation. And because we knew that we would change the script so much, we knew that we had to respect something, and we respect those 10 sacred rules. And we had these 10 rules always on our wall as we were working, you know, and so we were really committed to those rules.
Yeah.
We were really like we observed those rules, I think, really carefully, and I think we pretty much like
we followed the
needed
rules.
Yeah, and
rules, and
so
we follow our original intentions in some way, and we change some other things, I think.
Yeah, and we did something that I highly recommend to everyone that is not that like script based. We did a script at the beginning. We always had script, but it changed all the time. So we had like 10 scripts, but we start the production in the middle of the script. So then we could like move on, and then we could fix all the stupidities and problems that we or all the like strange decision that we did. So the film will look like more like like structured.
well,
It's really useful. You can
But you know,
yourself.
like, I have to explain. I think we see films. We understand film as organic things, as living beings. We understand art as living beings. So we don't. It's not that we have one image in our minds and we want to materialize this idea, but it's more like we let this thing grow by itself, and it helps a lot that we are two people doing this and not only one mind, you know, like over controlling the thing, but more like we help this new being to grow up, you know. So yeah, we create, I think we try to create more system rather than designs, something like this.
So I have a request, because, you know, you're so material based, and Laura too, actually. If Cristobal could give us a bit of a tour of maybe some of the materials.
Well, I can. Actually, I was showing this puppet that is it's a test for one of the scenes where we didn't use like actual size puppets, but like smaller puppets. And I was showing them this. I don't know, maybe I can show you some other things I have on my table now. Things I'm doing on all the Zoom meetings. I have so much time, so I started doing puppets during this time of.
Nice.
Joaquin draws when we are having meetings. Joaquin is drawing all the time, and I'm doing.
Wow.
I'm doing these puppets. I don't know what can I show you.
Well, I guess while you're finding stuff, I do have a question about that moment when, you know, when the characters, like when the scale like comes down, right, and the characters turn into these kind of cute little, they become these cute little maquettes, I guess.
Puppets.
Puppets, yeah. What was the genesis of that?
We have this rule in our like studio in general, but also in our like in the film, that we don't like to be bureaucrats. So we, even if we work in this slow process, like stop motion, we have this idea that every day in the studio can be like a change. We can do something different or in a different way. Of course, when you go into when you are talking about stop motion, that day is actually a week or 2 weeks. But we were playing a lot about like how to resolve or how to present each scene. Like as Cristobal said, we were like really open to the change, and we have like one drawing per scene, which is like really like not the regular like film storyboard. So we were like confronting every scene, like, okay, what is good for the film, what we feel to do today, like, or this week, how do we want to spend like 2 or 3 weeks working. And because the film is not like a scale or puppet based film, we thought that it was funny that one of the like the most important parts of the film, and the crisis scene in a way, it was made with puppets, and the softer and the pinkiest that we could do it. And it's also, that scene especially like important for us because it's inspired by an animation that we used to see when we were kids before going to bed. Like the Open TV showed this like a thing called Tata Colores, which is like a color Tata. I don't know, Tata is like a
Grandpa
colors, and they were like sending to your home, sending to you to bed with this. What's the name of the author? I skipped the name now. It's Chilean, super important.
Vivian
Barry. Yeah. So it is important because in Chile we don't have like much of an animation tradition, and Vivian Barry is one of the few persons that was doing animation before the 2000s. Like so we did that as we sort of remember this going to bed.
Yeah, as a homage to Vivian Barry.
Yeah.
But also, a lot of decisions that we make, like this one.
Yeah.
We make it like we see our films as comedies. Like we even if the result looks more like a horror film, I think we think in terms of comedy, and we laugh about this decision. It's like we will make like soft puppets, and we laugh a lot. Like and then it looks like scary. It's something that it's a bit out of our control.
Yeah. It's totally horrifying. And Laura, I want you to talk about maybe some of the material choices in Blue too, because you also have like, I guess, a miniature or this like small scale of importance. And if you want to talk about some of the materials and your parka too, like they're right. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't, so I guess there's some sculptural elements in the film that become, I guess, characters almost, and give me under the water something to react to or against or with. And the parka I made, and it's a clam. It's modeled after a clam shell, and so it has about 200 pieces of fabric in it, following the concentric kind of lines of a clam shell. And I was trying to build the parka how a clam secretes its shell. So near the umbo, or that little bump of the clam shell, that's where the shell grows. So there's layers and layers and layers. And I was thinking about connecting, I guess, thinking about the sort of protective shell of a clam, and then my clam shell-like parka protecting me against the elements, and then also thinking about the clam and the dredging and dissection of clams is also a metaphor for sexual violence. But the parka and the sculpture of the iceberg inn also links the gives it a kind of a place or a site that that it's in reference to. And for me, the trauma that I experienced happened in the north of Canada, and the ocean floor becomes a tundra, and then this dollhouse figure of the iceberg inn becomes the site of my trauma that I carry around with me, that I attempt to bury or that I nurture. And so it becomes something, I guess, that allows for me to work with some kind of narrative or some kind of place in a non-linear way.
Mm-hmm. And that site is, and it's not, I expected, I don't know somehow how I expected it to be destroyed, and it wasn't. So, okay, another question from the floor. From Allison Stevens, this is amazing. So this is a question for Cristobal and Joaquin. Are the puppets rigged to move with joints, or are they stationary? If the film is alive, did it teach you anything about yourself in the process of bringing it to life?
Well, there are two questions. Are they rigged to move? No, they are like really like made in the process. You know, they are made with cardboard and masking tape and waste and rubbish, and yeah. So they are not designed, I would say, and we make things that we can destroy and reconstruct. So that was the idea. We didn't want to. We didn't want to make for this film like animation, like naturalistic representation in animation, but we wanted to make an animation that is more about the process of constructing sculptures or constructing things and destructing things and making drawings and erasing drawings and painting and erasing paintings. So it's I think the animation in this film is more about plastic processes or like material processes rather than representation of nature or something. So we never thought, we didn't want to respect the puppets. We didn't want to respect to see some value on them. So we made them as cheap and as like trashy as we could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we also were like basically like constructing in front of the camera the puppets. So if you will be like in the studio, you will see that the back of the puppet, if it's not a puppet, but of the sculptor or something like that, well, looking, it's basically like nothing, you know, like it was just like cardboard and tape, and the film is basically in a way, you know, like the story is a storyboard that it constructs and melts and constructs again, and you go to the next image of the storyboard and constructs. And yeah, I was very happy about that because I hate to animate like realistic movements. I don't enjoy it at all. I mean, I did it because it was necessary in some scenes, but I really enjoy like, you know, like cutting at furniture and animating that. But like if I have to move someone like walking, it's like nightmare.
Because the frame, I guess the frame doesn't, it feels like it just doesn't end, right? Like there's a continuous just beginning and ending, or, you know, like it just keeps on going. And sorry, I guess the second part of that question was that, did the process teach you anything about yourself?
Oh, geez.
Or the film did the film teach us?
Yeah, did it teach you? Did it? Yeah.
Well, I think definitely. I mean, not only teach us, but it also like took us to places we didn't imagine. I mean, it was such a long journey. You know, Joaquin became a father twice during the process of making the film.
Wow.
Our lives changed completely. So it was a really like, I mean, it took us to really different places where we were before doing this
Yeah.
film. So yeah, and it taught us a lot about like also being artists and our practices as visual artists and as filmmakers, I think. Yeah, I don't know, Joaquin.
Yeah, I think one of, well, of course, the kids were like a big change, personally talking, but I think it's, for me, the big change artistically is that when we start working in the Wolf House, I think I personally thought that art was something that you do, you know, like you build something, you create something, and blah blah, like a drawing and a video or whatever you do. But we spent like most of the 5 years of production like working in museums, and you know, like we had actually no personal studio for most of the time, because we were like moving from one point to another. And I think after some time, and definitely now, I understand art as something that happens in places and you know, like actions. So when we now think in art, we normally think in actions or activating places, or you know, like even if we do a film, it's more clear that it's not something that you do, or a piece that you create is more like yeah, an activation of something that will happen in a specific place. Well, now it's strange to say that in these like internet times, but still. So I think that was the big change. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. And yeah, Laura, how did, because you talked about how Blue was not, you know, necessarily like, you didn't make it necessarily for catharsis, right? Like, how what did you learn from that process of making Blue? And Blue's your first film too, right? Or
it is, yeah. Yeah, I didn't actually set out to make a film. I had been making these underwater sculptures, this kind of big jellyfish-like enclosure, and it was more experiential for me. So I wanted to have these, I guess, performative interactions on the seafloor, and I hired the filmmaker to document that process, because I had a little GoPro camera and it wasn't cutting it. And when I began to see what the filmmaker was doing, and began to think about creating a story around these actions, that became far more interesting to me than, there was so much potential there. And so, yeah, it's a completely new way. I never worked in time-based media before, really. So it's an entirely new way of working, and I'm excited by it, and I'm going to pursue this way of working in video and film, and yeah.
Yeah. And okay, just another question about maybe this kind of like like leading to that, like this kind of improvisational element in the work. Like how did that? How much of that did you let happen?
Is this a question for me or for
yeah, you can continue. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, you can continue. Sorry.
Yeah, the whole thing, it was kind of a dance between having very pragmatic logistical parameters to work within, because working with divers underwater, and then different safety elements. So for a certain amount of time, there had to be a kind of housing or a container that was predetermined, but then I didn't want to over-determine what could happen, and I wanted there to be opportunity to, as I was learning or exploring or experiencing underwater, for there to be space for whatever to unfold. So it was always, kind of dance, or to play between those things. I didn't have a storyboard or a script going in. I had different vignettes or ideas of things I wanted to express, and it was only in the post-production that I began to think about how they might form a disjunctive story.
And okay, so is there any more questions from the floor?
I have one actually for Laura.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
No, do you feel that this like helped you, after doing it, helped you processing your like personal story, like your trauma, or actually like as a therapy or something?
I'm not, I think that, you know, over the course of making the work, I mean, there was time that lapsed, I suppose. And I think for me, a big part of the catharsis came from having agency over the telling of the story. I didn't get the floor in the court to tell my story, and to be able to tell it in a way that gave me license to use my body, to use art forms, to change the setting and have it take place on the bottom of the ocean. I think a catharsis came from that freedom, and then from sharing it as well. A catharsis comes. I was imagining. Initially, the work was made for a gallery and projected on a loop, and people could enter the space and sit with the work. And I was imagining it as a kind of bearing witness to a testimony, and having some interaction with people and talking about people's response and how a few people felt kind of physical sensations in their body. That also brought about was healing, or to think that I could communicate something of my experience.
And someone's asking, were you ever afraid underwater? And you know, there are some there are some night shots in there.
Yeah, it wasn't good scuba practice, that's for sure. You shouldn't be taking your dive gear off when you go underwater. And I didn't also have the mouthpiece tethered, so there was some real risk involved if the mouthpiece left my mouth, and but I think that real tension added to, like, gave something to the work, gave an urgency to the work, and I felt safe. I feel really comforted underwater. I know that's not the experience that a lot of people have, but I really felt like there was a trust with the team that I was working with, and I felt like I wasn't taking on risk that I wasn't able to manage.
And I just wanted to maybe talk about catharsis with Joaquin and Cristobal. Like, did the making of the Wolf House allow you to deal with this kind of, I guess, this collective trauma of this history that, you know, people that you're probably processing subconsciously or whatnot?
Well, of course, we have a different approach than Laura, because it's not something that nothing from the nothing that happened in the colony happened to us. But we took it more as we think that it's important that we revisit, you know, the social and personal traumas to sort of keep that memory alive, because it's I don't know in other countries, but in Chile, like Colonia Dignidad, for example, is not something that is hide in history. It's not like we are coming with this like new thing that everyone no one knew about it. But I always think as like the Chilean social memory as sand. So you are kind of like you put, you know, water in that sand and it just disappears and flows, you know. And I think in a way like social and history memory works in that way. Like you have to keep, you know, like remembering people that thing exists, because people said like, oh, Colonia Dignidad, yeah, I remember something. I was like, no, man, this was happening like a few years ago in Chile. So I think one of our like artistic roles, in a way, if you can say that, is to, with the Wolf House, it is to keep that memory alive. But because we have this like a tricky way of confronting the projects, we strongly believe that the way to approach that is not like the propaganda against that. So we should go into the problem and try to go out in a new way. So I'm being a little bit confusing, sorry, but it's basically like, normally what you have, the audiovisual and artistic approach to these problems, like social problems in Chile, is more, it's really like it's like showing that as an evil thing, like these guys are evil. But the problem with that is that only the ones that agree with you are like actually, like confronted with the film. So they will say, yeah, of course, I agree with you, that's terrible. Yeah. So we try to do the opposite. We try to, like invoke the problem, going into the skin of the evil or something like that.
Yeah,
I think there are also some other dimensions to that question. I think even if you don't want it, you always project as an author, as an artist, things of your personal life into your work in different layers, in different dimensions. Like in the Wolf House, when we talk about a sect, when we talk about Paul Schaeffer, this leader of this sect, we are also talking about our Catholic education. We are also talking about our experience growing up in dictatorship, and about Pinochet, and about our parents, maybe, even if we have, like, I think both of us nice parents, but about parenthood and about like oppression and repression in general. So of course we are talking also about ourselves, otherwise we wouldn't be interested at all the first time about these subjects. And also some layers, I grow more and more convinced that like art that you make, artworks, they work like spells, like magic spells in your life, and they kind of activate things in your future or about your past. And of course, like I won't talk about these things, but of course, like events of our personal lives and characters and person are in this film, I'm sure of that. Like, so yeah, I'm like in many different dimensions and layers. I think like the work as a catharsis, or as a digestion of personal stories and traumas and emotions, and
That's beautiful. Yes. Okay, another question from the floor. In all caps, how much paint?
Sadly, we don't have we were not careful enough to know how much material we used. I just have to say that we used the cheapest materials that we could, something that it's not recommendable to use in a painting that you will sell to someone. I think, it's a lot of material, but I think it's more human time based, the work. Yeah, it's a lot of painting, a lot of tape and wooden, but mainly like things that were like close to be in the garbage, or like really cheap things. We found out that you can buy like this painting to paint your house in a bag. So it's like painting, but not in a can, in a bag. It's probably not legal, like like in Canada, but here you can buy this bag of painting that looks like black.
Yeah.
And when it gets dry, it's gray actually.
What is that?
That is the open scene actually.
Actually, I'm not sure if it's paint after that. Maybe it's like rat poison.
Whoa. But so did you actually rifle through the trash? Did you go through the trash and get materials?
Yeah, a lot. Like
Yeah.
you know, to build to build all the installations in the museums, we would go into the room where they throw all the
Yeah.
previous installation of the museum. It's basically like rubbish and trash, and like old cardboards and woods, and we would construct with this. So yeah, it was not that we were in the street like.
Yeah.
Some days we were doing that actually.
Yeah, we did first.
Yeah, for a couple of shows. Well, the thing, just a short mention about that, like in Chile, like we have museums and contemporary museums, but the museums look like museums and they behave like museums, but they don't have the budget of a museum.
Oh.
So basically, but they have a lot of trash and garbage. So when we were like doing the shows, we were playing with that. And so we went into the museum and asked them like, where's your garbage? You know, like, so we were like taking all the garbage back to the museum and building, you know, the installation with that. So there's no budget, but there's a lot of trash. So we were like basically working with that. Yeah.
Amazing.
It was fun. It was fun. Recycling is a big word for that. At the end, it was like a smash of like, you know, plastic.
We were saving the planet.
Yeah, we were saving the planet.
I mean, Laura, there's lots of, oh man, like institutions and their garbage, like the U of M. Wow, their garbage was just nuts. There was one year I remember the library started to throw out a bunch of like film prints that people would just kind of like grab from the garbage, or printers, or like designer chairs, you know, and whatnot. Laura, did you ever rifle through the garbage at your schools?
Yeah, I mean, I was working on a much smaller scale, so, but yeah, we'd often share materials, and there'd be lots of like, you know, recycling happening.
Cool. Well, okay, I think we've gone over time, but that's because there's so many engaged viewers asking amazing questions, and this entire session was so wonderful and inspiring. Thank you so much for staying up late with us and hanging out and answering our burning questions. And yeah, so everyone who's still tuned in, just please check out the lineup for tomorrow. There's the RBC pitch competition and a lot more on the GFF live stream. So I wish you all a good sleep and sweet dreams.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. And thank you,
Leslie,
to the festival for having us here. Nice to meet you, Laura.
Very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Ciao.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, I don't know if we're still live.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we are.
No.
Are we? Oh,
it says live.
Hey, everybody.
It says,
So okay, we can.
I think
We can do the cat.
yeah.